Welcome to the Biscuits and Blurays podcast, where we watch Blu-rays, and the biscuit is a big old puppet. He's a puppet, and that's it. That's all I got. I'm your host, James. Co-host Jade is currently, at the time of recording, fully at work. Can you believe it? But
an outrage.
Can you believe? Yeah, right. Luckily, I'm not alone in this one. I've featured on his podcast before, and we've been backwards and forward with messaging every now and then.
Absolutely.
This is Benedick from SeeThisIf.
Hello.
Welcome to this podcast, mate. How are you?
Thank you. Well, it's an honour first to be here. I say that I literally begged you to be on your podcast because I absolutely love it. I'm going to say that it was you that asked me, and we'll edit that bit out. No, yes, I'm great, mate. I'm great. Yes. How are you?
Oh, very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Before we get into the film you've chosen, and people by now will understand what film that is, but we are doing a thing now with guests where we go through their top 4 films on Letterboxd just to get a feel for who that person is. So if it's okay with you, please walk us through your top 4 on Letterboxd.
Absolutely. So I've actually done quite a few lectures on this when I used to be a teacher, and I went through the reasons why. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but I'll give a very brief reason why for each one. Film is such a fluid thing. You know, you can ask somebody what their favourite film is, and they'll come back and they'll say it's a fluid thing, and you know, it depends on the genre, it depends on the time of day, it depends, you know, if I've had my cereal or not. All of those things that come into people's minds when they ask the most difficult question in the world: what's your favourite film? And I know I've been whittling on about it, but it is absolutely true. If you are a film fan and you've seen all of these films, you go, how can I just pick one? Then it comes to 4 on Letterboxd, and you go, how can I just pick 4? So these ones are ones that I say on a frequent basis. They're not necessarily solidified. You know, they do move around. Every time I watch a new film, I think, wow, that's brilliant. But just to get the conversation going, that's it there. The one that I think's got like a perfect story structure is Back to the Future, 1985.
Mm-hmm.
I like to remind people of the years because next year it's a very big anniversary for it. So yeah, it's just got a perfect narrative structure. If you listen to the commentary, a lot of what people think are plot holes are actually tied up within the story. It actually explains itself, and that's very rare these days. It's very rare, in my opinion. The next one is Die Hard. I do lean on the side of it is a Christmas film. But,
why do you think it is a Christmas film?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that, James.
I just thought I'd throw it out there. Go on.
I'm so glad that you asked me that. There's actually there's a lot of debate behind it, and I can see why people don't think it's a Christmas film. It was released in July in 1988, so how could it possibly be a Christmas film? But then Elf was released in November, so yeah, that's besides the point. No, I've done a master's in film, and I actually did study Die Hard to absolute death, and I found an interesting article, and I'm just going to put mild spoiler towards Die Hard here, just so that I can justify my point. I won't go into too much detail because I love people to see it, and I don't like spoiling films. Right at the end, there's a sort of an explosion because it's in an office building. All of this paper cascades down.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife comes out, and John wraps his coat around his wife, around the shoulders and everything like that. Yes, she's been through a traumatic experience, but it is Los Angeles, so it shouldn't be that cold even at night. This paper, which is white, comes down like snow. So the film kind of finishes the way a Christmas film would, where it starts to snow and, you know, everybody's, you know, kind of happy. That's one justification for it. The other justification is, you know, they constantly say Merry Christmas to it. So it is that's Christmas. What more could you possibly want? I guess the side to it is that, you know, it's more focused on the action, which is what I really love about it. I think
Absolutely, yeah.
Action movie. It's a blueprint. You look at the films that come after it, Under Siege, Speed, all of those types of films have all used the archetype of Die Hard. to justify their existence. Yeah, that's why Die Hard is there. The other one, if you know me really well, you know that I'm a James Bond aficionado. Out of all of them, all 25 of them, my favourite one is Goldfinger. Again, I think it's got the blueprint there. It's where we're introduced to the Aston Martin DB5. Gadgets are more prominent in that one. You've got more of the one-liners and the more Sean Connery charm. And yeah, it just basically, if you want to introduce somebody to James Bond, that's the film that you want them to see what it's all about, really. So that's why Goldfinger is up there for me. The last one I have seen 372 times at the time of the recording. The reason I've seen it that much is because I've studied it in my degree, I've studied it in my master's. That's what you do. You study a film to death. You literally go through it frame by frame. You analyze it here and there, from every angle. And do you know what, James? If you said to me right now, I haven't seen Terminator 2, then I would sit down with you and I'd watch it with you. Not by gunpoint, but if you did want to watch it, and I'd see it through your eyes. That's how much I love this film, and I've said it just before. It's Terminator 2, and that's why I love that film. If you can watch it over and over again and not get bored of it, and still discuss it with people to this day, that surely has to be justification for your favorite film. And weirdly, I'm getting married in a couple of weeks' time at the time of the recording. My best men took me to a private screening of it where it was just me and them in a London cinema, and we watched Terminator 2. It was an absolute joy to watch it like that up on the big screen. And those are my four favourites.
It's a strong top four, though, mate. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I'm very action orientated, but I consider myself an all-rounder. But yes, I do like my action.
Which is weird that the film that we're talking about today you haven't put in your top four. Well, let me ask you this: why did you pick this film? Team America: World Police is what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. But yes. Why did you pick Team America: World Police as the film you wanted to talk about on this podcast?
Well, I wanted to be on your podcast and talk to you about a film. But Team America isn't really just any film. Genre is a funny thing, particularly with comedy and horror. If you do either badly, you have the opposite effect. So if you do a horror really badly, it becomes a comedy. If you do a comedy really badly, it becomes, to a lot of people, a horror. Going, my God, why did you think that was, funny, etc. Freddy Got Fingered is probably the best example I can think of there. Why anybody would find that funny is beyond me.
Just a quick thing, I am in the camp of I find Freddy Got Fingered quite funny.
Oh, do you? Okay, right. Well, I do apologise, but I watched that film and I just went, why did this get made? Why on earth? But with comedies, there is quite a lot of them out there, and a lot of people talk about American comedy, and American Pie is probably a good example of what they're talking about with regards to American comedy. And there's not really a lot out there that's really good comedy, like really sticks out. Everybody has their favourites, but there isn't universally loved ones. You've got Airplane and you've got Naked Gun. Both fantastic comedies, and I think there's a kind of universal. Some people might say there's bits in Airplane that are dated. Yeah, I can agree with that, but a lot of it is very funny. A lot of it's very quotable, still quotable today. Naked Gun is very much the same as well. It's very much a visual comedy. It's a very cinematic comedy as well. A lot of comedy works audio wise because it's spoken jokes, but this one you need to watch as well because there's things happening in the background, and that's what gives its sort of rewatchability. Since then, there haven't really been that many like universally loved comedies. For a little while, American Pie was there, but I mean it's extremely dated now, fortunately. So yes, with Team America though, it goes up there as one of the comedy greats, and that's why I wanted to discuss it, because the clever thing about it is it can be seen on two levels. You can watch it at a drunk house party and love it and laugh at all the jokes, or And I find this absolutely amazing is that you can go into an American politics class in university and find people talking about it there, looking at the way America's represented in it, and there. So you can actually take this comedy very seriously and see what they're actually doing. And I think the clever thing about it, also as well, is that it's a right wing and a left wing comedy. It's got two the two sides there. It doesn't fall down on one. It lets you decide who is right. Is it the leftist actors, or is it the right wing Kim Jong Il that's right about society, or are neither of them right? Are they both idiots? And you can go down that line. I don't think we will go down that line of talking about it politically. I don't think that's a very interesting thing to talk about on this.
I'm telling you right now, politically, we're keeping it very clean.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and I'm not wanting to go down that route either. So, but if you wanted to take it that way, you could with Team America. And I don't think there's many comedies that have that level of intelligence behind it. And I use that word intelligence for a very specific reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think politically, we can't not address it. It came out 2004, so this
Yeah,
is
this is Bush era. Yeah, this is very
yeah.
much Bush era.
And obviously, I think we had albums like American Idiot out at that time as well. So there was a lot of media sort of making fun of the American politics at that time. This is from the makers of South Park. I can't stress this enough. I think these two, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, I think they are geniuses. I've always liked South Park. I think it's silly enough. I think it makes fun at the right people, and I think it's consistently funny. They are very talented in music as well. I think the Book of Mormon is a thing, a musical that they have out still now actively. It's doing really well. But here, I think their comedy, which is silly, which is making fun at people, no one is safe. I think if you make fun of everyone in turn as a collective, you can't piss anyone off.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't say I was singled out. Mm.
But I think a few celebrities did feel I'm being singled out. We'll talk
Yeah,
about them in a sec.
yeah, absolutely.
Are you a fan of South Park?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I love the show. I have thought that there are some because of I know their writing process. I think they churn out they spend a night on writing an episode and then they film it the following day. I think there's a very sort of a quick turnaround. And with that, there are some fantastic episodes. Cartman versus the is it the fifth grader or I can't remember Scott Tenorman.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's my favorite episode of all time. But there are some miss episodes where it's not because it's been offensive. It's just because it's not been funny for me. I would say that if I got round to watching more South Park, I think I would get more on board with it.
I've been watching South Park a lot recently. I've recently got Paramount Plus. It's all there. I think there
Mm.
are a few episodes that you have to pay for, but I've sort of gone, okay, season one onwards, and I've kind of hit a lull now where I've gone, it's kind of wearing a bit thin.
Mm.
But I've always laughed at an episode. Like, there's not an episode where I've gone, that isn't funny. Even if
Yes.
it's so much as like a stupid fart joke, which I would
Mm.
like to think I'm above, but
Yes.
I'm not.
We all like to think that, James, but a fart joke does have its place, you know.
Exactly. Like sewers, farts are funny. I think I'm glad you picked this film. I really am because it's been a while since I've seen it. It's been a while since I've talked about it, but I think I can play it through in my head all the time.
Yes,
There was
you
a
got a
there was a
food cinema.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was a time when I was watching this with my parents in the room, and I was at the age where I was allowed to watch stuff like this now, and they were like, "This is the stupidest thing you've ever watched. You need to grow up." And I
Mm.
was like, "Okay, fine, sure," but it's strong. I think this is a very
Mm.
strong film.
Do you think it's dated?
I think no, I think dated's the wrong word. I think it is a time capsule of the early 2000s,
Right.
but
But
I
what's the difference between that and American Pie? Why is American Pie now, well, almost reviled, whereas Team America can be seen as a time capsule?
I think because where we are post the Me Too movement, I think American Pie it just doesn't hold up. I've watched films like American Pie, like Road Trip. I think I watched Road Trip recently. And
Hmm.
even that doesn't seem to have aged quite well. But I think this is a different sort of humor. This is a bit more timeless. And I can't put my finger on why. What do you think?
I think it's because yeah, we both want to steer away from it, but we're getting drawn to it. Obviously, we're not going to get into like a heated of who's right and who's wrong and all this and that lot. But I think it is because it's political. It is making fun of the Bush administration, and it is something that America very much is still that, you can still feel that attitude. I think that's why it kind of exists that way. I mean, I asked you because it wasn't a loaded question. I didn't have an answer myself. I was just seeing, what your opinion of it was. Did you think, maybe in 10 years' time, would we say, oh God, that humor hasn't aged well at all? I do think Team America does stand the test of time. I do think there will be things like, the actors being like Janae Garofalo, I can't pronounce her name.
Janine Garofalo, yeah.
Janine Garofalo, thank you. I know her, and you probably know her quite well, but I would say that somebody new coming to it probably doesn't know who she is because she's not very prominent at the moment, and other actors in it as well. But I think you still get the point of Hollywood being represented there rather than, it being specific actors being made fun of. They could have picked anybody, but they decided to pick Alec Baldwin. I mean, Alec Baldwin is probably now a really good choice in light of certain things.
Uh-huh.
But yes, that's become a more of a delicate area as well.
Let's talk. I don't think we can really speak about Team America without talking about certain Jerry Anderson work.
Yes, yes, I'm hoping we're thinking the same one.
I think
And
I would think so.
yes,
Should we say it at the same time?
yes.
Three,
Three,
two, one.
one. Joe 90. No,
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah, okay.
Thunderbirds. Yes.
Yes, this is using a marionette puppets. It's a stylistic choice, but I think it's a perfect one. Were you a fan of those shows growing up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is going to age me really, really badly. But Blue Peter, a children's television program shot on the BBC for people across the world listening to this, because I know you've got people across the world doing that. Just to give some context, Anthea Turner, beautiful presenter, decided to teach everybody how to make Tracy Island, which is where it's all set initially, out of household materials. And I absolutely loved that at the age
Mhm.
that it came out. I think I was about 10 or something like that. And I was making it. I sent off for the working sheet and everything and got it back and started making it instantly out of paper mache. So I absolutely loved that idea. And I just want to say one very quick anecdote. I was at my university doing my degree, and it was up in Aberystwyth, which is in Wales, and it's a very isolated town. So they've only got one cinema and one screen at the time, the Commodore.
Mhm.
And we all went in there. All the students were in there, getting ready to watch Team America. And after the big title screens, up comes this marionette that drops down and it looks absolutely rubbish. And we're thinking, oh God, what I thought it was going to look better than that. And then the camera pans out and it's a lot better than that. And I just thought that was a great gag. And everybody in the cinema laughed. And I just thought that's brilliant. But yes, massive fan of the show. Were you? I didn't think you were of the age, James. I thought you were a little bit younger.
I mean, thank you very much. You
Yeah.
can come back on this podcast again, sir. But when I was a kid, which was way too long ago, they were just reruns that was just on
Yeah.
on BBC Two and stuff. So I would always watch them because my parents would watch them.
Yeah.
It was like, I'll sit down, watch Thunderbirds, watch Captain Scarlet. Captain Scarlet less so,
Okay. Yeah.
but Thunderbirds I was a big fan of, and
Yeah.
it's a shame that movie ended up the way it did. But
Oh, the Bill Paxton one. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Same year as Team America, didn't it?
I mean, if
Or
it was
thereabout.
maybe around the early 2000s because
Yeah.
Busted released the best song ever made. So yeah, I would watch those, but it's weird to me that that died off when it did, the marionette style,
Mm.
and then just came back with this, and it hasn't been touched again.
Right, there's a very good reason for that. I remember the interview with Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and I'm very disappointed that the Blu-ray, which I have behind me, doesn't have any special features on. But I do remember Trey Parker and Matt Stone said they took on this project, thinking it would be a lot of fun, and it was. But it also turned out to be a lot of work as well,
Mhm.
which is why they had prepared a sequel, and then they just decided not to do it because it was just too much work to do it. That's their personal reason. But yeah, I can't see why other people haven't imitated it. Maybe it was just that phase, maybe the 90s, and then they just went, no, that's it. I think it would work well. I think there would be, I think this would go cool for it. But I do remember they kind of did an adult version of like the Muppet Show called Happy Time Murders. Have you seen that film?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you reacted that way because I only remember it because of how awful it is. That's an example of awful American comedy. And I just went, I can't remember anything about it. That's how bad it is. When I see a bad movie, I instantly forget it. But that one stuck with me, and I thought that was going to be so good. I thought that would have a, have a lifetime behind it. But no.
I think because maybe when we were kids, we had things like the Muppets.
Hmm.
Puppets were all the rage back then. I think obviously it's sort of, I would argue it would be a bit more retro if they ever did anything like this again.
Yeah.
And kids would go, "Oh, like is that what you used to watch? That's insane." And then we'd be like, "Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing, actually." But I think this is, I think it's a spectacle. Even though it seems hard work, I appreciate the work that has gone into these puppets. It's a craft that
Yeah.
is for long forgotten, and I think I would like to see another one of these attempted.
Yeah.
However, I can fully appreciate why.
I think one of the great things about the story of Jerry Anderson, I think I've embellished it a little bit in my mind, but I did read a bit behind it. There was a exhibition that came up to where I live, which is Bristol, not so long ago, and I remember Jerry Anderson desperately wanted to get into the film industry and was turned down at every sort of junction until he came upon puppetry. He decided to make a show that would suit the adult audience but make it for children. And that's what I love about Thunderbirds is that it's not the patronizing, let's do a song and dance and explain things, explicitly to you. It is done like a Mission Impossible episode, if you ever see the television series, and done it that way. And it just so happens to be puppets. I can't get them out of my mind. Alan Tracy putting on disguise, which is very much like in Team America, of a beard, but they've just literally just stuck it onto the marionette, and everybody thinks he's a completely different person. And they do that in Team America, and I just think that is absolutely brilliant. That's one of the things that I think is very appealing about Thunderbirds and Team America is that yes, you've got the adult humor. You wouldn't show that the Team America to a kid, sure, but if you took that all out, it would still work and still appeal to kids. It's the same with Thunderbirds as well.
So let's talk a bit about the plot of the movie because I think it's a bit bonkers.
It's bonkers, but it's straightforward as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Mm.
It's very it's simple, but it's effective.
Yeah.
So we have a Thunderbirds like team in America, Team America World Police. What sort of things do they police?
Well, I think the number one thing is terrorism.
Hmm.
The terrorists are out to get you, and that's exactly what they want. Yeah, I think that's all they do, and they want to keep the world safe, or they think what they're doing is keeping the world safe. I mean, trying to blow up a terrorist with a rocket launcher, missing and getting the Eiffel Tower, and going, "Oh, missed," is it's just great comedy, in my opinion.
It's
Uh,
very it's good satire. I think let's face it, Team America essentially they go there in the best of interests. However,
yes.
they end up doing more harm than good.
And I think they're blind to it as well. I think that's where the comedy comes to it. They think they've done well, and they sort of like clap their hands and they clap each other on their back. Whereas the greatest bit of comedy is actually seeing the reactions of the people that they've left devastated. So the French and the Egyptians in particular are two groups of people who they think they've helped, but their face just says it all through the art of puppetry as well. It's just fantastic.
There's a team. I think in one of this team, sadly, it doesn't really go their way. So
No,
they're a member down. Yeah, that's it. We need a new recruit essentially. And what better person to put on your team of world police than an actor?
I couldn't think of anybody better. Act your way out of this. Gary Johnson. That's an actor's name.
He's apparently the best actor on Broadway.
And what was he in? What was he in? What was the name of the musical?
It was a Rent knockoff, wasn't it?
It was a red knockoff. It's Lease.
Lease, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lease.
So I'm from a theatre background. That's where my allegiances lie. That musical Rent is something else. And
Right.
because we said I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't.
If you don't get those jokes in this movie, I would argue that you should see a bit more theatre.
Right. Okay.
Not this isn't aimed at you. This is aimed at the general
Yeah,
public.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Because those sorts of musicals are real. Like Rent is a musical about AIDS. I think I know a company that's done it recently, and I just can't think how anyone can take that seriously after this film's come out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of ruined it a little bit, hasn't it?
Oh God, yeah, I didn't buy tickets for that show. I was just like, I can't do it because it's Team America. Gary Johnson, he's the best actor on Broadway, and Spotswood, who is the head of Team America, decides, okay, we want to get him on the team.
I do like a little bit of that scene where he's convincing Gary to join the Team America. They get into a car. That car is a limousine. That limousine drives across one of the New York bridges. It's undescribed, and it turns into a flying car. And Gary says, "A flying car? Now I've seen everything." Which Spotswood replies, "Have you seen a man eat his own head?" Gary replies, "No." He says, "Then you haven't seen everything." And I think that basically sums up Team America, because from then you haven't seen everything until you've seen Team America. The Mount Rushmore turns into the landing base. Things open up that really shouldn't. He meets the team that have been devastated by this death, and he's immediately swept up into a mission going to Cairo, which is clarified is in Egypt. I love that little nod as well, because that's basically saying America doesn't know where things are in the world, and which is not true, but I just want to clarify that. I don't want to anger your audience. That they have to find out where the next attack is, and then they find out. I'll let you take this part, James. They find out that there's a bigger plan at play by an even more evil mastermind. Who is that evil mastermind, James?
This is the leader, Kim Jong-il, who
Yes.
is essentially he's a dictator. He runs things.
I was wondering what you're going to say then.
Well, he is, isn't he? Like I love his portrayal in this. I think obviously, without stepping on too much political stuff, I think obviously he is portrayed as an evil man who wants to essentially bring on some sort of, well, he's not got good plans, let's put it that way.
Yes.
Team America keep getting in the way.
And stopping his plans, thwarting it like Scooby-Doo.
Let's talk about this a little bit, because I think we'll skip ahead a little bit, because I do want to talk about the use of songs in this. The song "I'm So Lonely," it's a ballad. It's sung with such earnest and a need of wanting. When I did my dissertation, I wrote up a piece about Mel Brooks, and I noticed a quote of his when he did The Producers. He said he was addressing the Springtime for Hitler stuff, and essentially he said, well, monsters like Hitler shouldn't be feared. They shouldn't be put on this pedestal as like great people. They should be ridiculed. And I think that is essentially what is happening here with the South Park crew. Because it is taking a shot at a dictator, you do need to be careful. but it does fall in parody. I think we all remember what happened when James Franco and Seth Rogen tried to do it.
Yeah, yeah, that didn't turn out so well. I haven't seen that. I'm not a big fan of Seth Rogen, unfortunately. I do remember that not turning out so well for them, caught up in many legal battles. And I feel like Team America, in a sense, with how it all pans out towards the end, which I won't skip to, but I do feel like, oh, were they slapped with a lawsuit and said you have to do this to make it better? Because it does become a little bit what's the word, surreal towards the end, with how everything pans out, leaving open like an Austin Powers type room for sequel, but closing it if not, and in this case not.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone have probably met with a lot of lawsuits with regards to this, particularly with the actors featured in it as well. Some of them having a better sense of humor. Matt Damon, for example, Matt Damon. I don't know where that joke came from, but Matt Damon was asked about that, and he thought it was absolutely brilliant. He didn't understand why that was the way it was, but he just said, "Hats off to them. That was a good play."
I actually do know why that joke happened.
Oh, go on.
So essentially, they were creating these puppets to resemble these actors. Everyone turned out okay. Susan Sarandon, Alec Baldwin, but for some reason there was something wrong with the Matt Damon one, and and they sort of like, I think they were making a joke about it. It's like, oh, it looks like he's a bit special. Is probably
Special.
the word.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they thought, yeah, that's funny. Let's do that. So essentially, they just did
That's
that.
just it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
just because that puppet didn't sort of mold right or maybe melted slightly. Luckily,
I
Matt
love that.
he's took it in his stride.
He took it in stride. Yeah, absolutely. He's lived with it for 20 years. So yeah, absolutely.
With the music, so are you adverse to a musical number?
I am, yes, largely. I think it does disrupt it. I think with the Trey Parker, Matt Stone films, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and Team America, it works. I think you'll have to agree, James, that the songs in Team America are not the greatest of written, in the sense that they're not written like songs. They're more putting words in and then doing it to a song, rather than your Andrew Lloyd Webber type well composed songs and things like that. I think you told me though that the song that you're having for your wedding as your bridal march is Pearl Harbor Sucked. Uh,
And I miss you.
yes. Yeah, yeah. Is that right? Is that what you're having for your wedding?
Dude, that was supposed to be a surprise. What the hell are
Oh
you
right,
doing?
oh right. Oh, sorry. Yes, yes.
Well, let's compare the two movies, South Park and Team America. I would argue that South Park is a fully fledged musical.
Yes, and I would agree with you that. And I think the songs in it are very well written as well.
Yeah, I think that they're such talented guys, and I think they've got a love for musicals anyway.
Hmm.
That I think they sort of just tweak their talents a little bit, and it's worked.
Yes.
Here, I do think you're right. I don't think they sort of the songs in this flow in as much. I think
But
they are a
I
bit.
think that's the point. I think that is kind of the point that they're not meant to be brilliant songs. Montage is my favorite, but all they're doing really, I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, is just commenting on Rocky movies. So, that's all they're doing. But they're not, where you'd expect a rhyme to go. They just like fit in 5 words to where 1 word should go,
Yeah.
etc.
But I think
And
because the film hasn't taken a musical shape, I think
no,
that when the songs do appear, it's a bit absurdist.
yeah, so that's very much my opinion of musicals. I don't want to offend you, James, because I know you are very much a musical guy, and I mean nothing personally or anything like that. But I do feel that in this one it does interrupt the flow a little bit. But once I'm in it and once I know what they're talking about, etc., I'm just like going, yeah, this is funny, ripping into Pearl Harbor for no reason. There's no context to it. There's no, like going, why are we talking about Pearl Harbor here? It's just a means of a way to convey a character's feelings. In this case, I think Gary misses Sarah, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And then they're just talking about how Pearl Harbor sucked and Ben Affleck needs acting lessons. Which I don't agree with. I think Ben Affleck's a fine actor, but okay.
Don't
Uh,
forget this came out around Daredevil time, so I
yeah,
think because rewatching a few South Park, it's surprising how often Ben Affleck comes into conversation, especially in the earlier seasons. So I just think, what have they got against him? And I don't think it's that they've got anything against him. I just think I just think it's
easy
ridiculous.
target.
It's an
Yeah.
easy target, yeah. And I don't think he's the sort of person to go, oh, like I'm going to sue for everything they've got. Essentially, he seems like a guy who's going to go, yeah, why not?
Absolutely.
But I do love that song, Pearl Harbor Sucks and I Miss You, because like obviously they didn't like Pearl Harbor and they had to stress their opinions in this one. Let's talk about the actors they use in this.
Right.
We spoke about Matt Damon, he's done.
Sean
Do you,
Penn.
yeah. Well, Sean Penn's a very interesting choice because I
Yeah.
think even now Sean Penn's still doing shit like this, just getting involved with sticking his nose in where he doesn't need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, who kind of reiterated what Team America does in the sense that, you've got these actors standing on a stage, accepting an award, and then talking about, as you say, sticking your nose in something they know very little about. And I watch the Oscars every year, and just hearing people talking about, these political issues, they may be very passionate about it, but you're just like going, it's not the forum for it. The history
Mhm.
of the Oscars have repeatedly said we don't stand for politics up on the stage. It's an award show for film,
Mhm.
you're not expecting that. You're not wanting to watch, Cats, and then the show to suddenly stop and say, I just want to take a moment to talk about environmental issues, preach to you about that, and then we'll get on with McCavity. But um,
I would argue that would improve Cats.
that might improve Cats. Yes, actually, yes, that's probably a very bad example of a musical. That's just the only one that came to mind. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to go on.
Because, like you said, Ricky Gervais said, like, come up, accept your award, don't say
Yeah,
anything, leave. But actors be actors, you know? They've got,
yeah,
I think actors think, okay, I'm in a platform where I can speak about these things. However, you are always going to piss someone off,
yeah.
no matter what your opinion is.
It's very true. I think it's okay to be a rounded person and just go, well, I don't want to be just known for my acting. I want to be known as a UN ambassador, and I think that's absolutely great. But be a UN ambassador in the UN setting. Don't cross over into your other setting because you're just not going to get more followers that way. That's just not the point, or at least that's my opinion on it.
So I think they are right to be ridiculed for this.
Yes.
Any actor, not
Yeah.
just not just Alec Baldwin or Sean Penn or Susan Sarandon, who honestly I didn't know Susan Sarandon was that interested.
Yeah.
It's a
I
fair
didn't.
shot. I do love the joke where they're trying to save the actors essentially, or go
Mm.
into Kim Jong's place, and then Susan Sarandon's pretending she's tied up, and then Harry Johnson says, "Oh, your talents are fading with age." I just think that's such a burn.
So unnecessary, in my opinion. But yes, that was funny. And then she dies in the most horrible way as well. I think they've just chosen some just like really graphically explicit heads explode. Susan Sarandon, I think, falls off a building and then splats on the ground, and you actually see, the splats and everything like that. It is like South Park, where there is an episode where Cartman and Kenny are having a fight over whether you, pardon my language, shit yourself after you die, and then right at the end of the episode, person dies via hanging, and you see them shit themselves. And he goes, "Oh, yes, they do." And I'm just like, that's completely unnecessary, but that is so funny. It's so funny, and that's what they want to do. They want to kind of push it to like the edge. I don't think they go over it. I
Mm.
think that's what's so clever about it is that they don't go over it, like go, oh no, that's too far. They've just gone just enough for you to go, yeah, that was funny.
It does seem a bit tame though, compared to the episodes of South Park I've been watching.
Very true. Very true.
Because I think maybe it's a difference between television and movies. I think
Oh, okay. Yeah,
because
sure.
maybe movies have a different censor board. Obviously, they have different ratings and stuff like this. Whereas TV, maybe they can get away with it a little bit more. I mean, I don't know anything about the rating system in America, but
Yeah.
I know the box sets for South Park here are 18, whereas
Hmm.
the film Team America is a 15.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, though, James, surely you can agree that it's all down to your sense of humor and how far you want to push that. I mean, with Team America, if you are very politically motivated, then that might push your buttons. Whereas, you and I, our buttons are not pushed. We might be pushed on something else, an issue of racism or sexism, which South Park covers in abundance on the show. That might tweak it there, and it's very interesting what we decide as racism and sexism is 18, talking in a fake accent 15. I do find that there's a body of people, the BBFC, who have decided, yeah, this is what different ages can handle. I do find that fascinating. I could start talking about the classification thing because it's something I'm actually really passionate about, but I'm not going to, so I'm not going to rant about that. Yeah, even though I could.
I think it's interesting as well that maybe if I think the first time I watched this, the political jokes didn't really land, but I was just like, "Yep, that's funny." Make fun of Alec Baldwin and stuff. Maybe if you and then like rewatching it, you get a little bit more world weary, and
Yeah.
sort of some things do sink in eventually, and maybe you grow into those jokes, perhaps.
Mm.
Therefore, giving the film a little bit more rewatchability.
Yes, I
That would
think.
be my experience with this film in particular.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that is for Team America is that you can rewatch it and go, I didn't understand that joke then, but now I do. It's a bit like Simpsons, isn't it? You
Mm.
watch Simpsons when you were younger and you didn't realize that they were making a sex joke, and then suddenly, when you're older, you're going, my God, I can't believe they got away with that in a kids show. That's the brilliance of it. And it's the same with Team America. It's just outstanding writing. I love their process. It's not something that I personally would do if I was to make the film, but I'm not wired that way. I'm just so glad Trey Parker and Matt Stone are wired that way. Yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
They write a little bit different to how other people would write. They
Yeah,
they write in I have seen one of their talks about it, and they say, okay, they start with one thing that's happening, and then they go, oh, therefore and because sort of sits in between, therefore, and then this happens, and then it's just a chain reaction of all these things.
mm,
Whereas I think most people, if they were right, it would go, okay, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. But all the things that happen in this film and most South Park episodes happen because of the way they write, which is completely different and quite unique.
absolutely. I've got a question for you. I've got two questions that I'm going to ask you at the end, but I've got a question for you pertinent now. I think we both agree that Team America is a seminal comedy. It's a very important comedy in film history. I think it is something that is universally respected as a great comedy. That is again a matter of opinion. Since 2004, can you name another comedy that has probably had a similar impact? I tried to think of one for the show, and I can't think of one between now and 20 years ago that has had a similar sort of impact.
Comedy has changed, sort of, though. The landscape of comedy's changed. Where you would have, for instance, back in the 90s and the 2000s, you would flock to the cinema to see a massive Jim Carrey comedy. And like the American Pies came out and people would go to see them. But now comedy is mostly it's Netflix centric.
Yeah.
It's streaming
Mm.
centric. They just don't do well at the box office anymore. The comedies are sort of your MCU-esque stuff. So, for instance, like Guardians of the Galaxy, people would say
Yeah.
that is a comedy I have seen, but that is not a comedy film.
Yeah.
And
It's not
I
primarily a comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, I can't think of any comedies that have come out in the past. Maybe Tropic Thunder would be the last big comedy.
There we go. Yeah, you've done it. You've done it. And that was like 2007 or something like that.
2008, yeah, which was the same year as Iron Man.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I,
you're right.
that would be the example I can think of.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. But since then, I mean, if we then go and say Tropic Thunder, I mean, between then 2008 and now, there still hasn't been that many. But do leave James a comment if you go there and ones we've overlooked and gone, how could you forget this? This is a great comedy, and I will feel very remiss that I've got that there. James, I've got a couple of questions for you. First of
Mm.
all, Team America. I might be stepping on your toes here, but Team America, is it better than Space Jam?
You're asking my questions here, sir. I'm a guest on my own podcast.
I want to ask you. I'm so used to asking the questions and not being asked the questions. And look at me, I'm talking my head off. But I
Hey,
want to ask you first.
yeah,
Is
you
it
know
better?
what? I appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. I think even if there's a joke that you don't find funny, you don't have to wait long until there is one that you do. I think the absurdism and I think even the puppetry, even when it's bad, it's so bad it's funny, but it's a comedy, so it's okay to laugh at it.
I
For,
agree. Yeah.
for instance, when they're fighting each other and it's just two puppets banging into each other, I just think, yeah, that is funny.
And the sex scenes as well.
Oh, we
Absolutely.
didn't even talk about the sex scene.
Yes. Or my favorite scene, which is the puke scene, where he doesn't stop puking. That is just comedy gold, in my opinion. But that's the thing, James. You're absolutely right. They loved it so much that they wanted to make the really bad bits really bad, so that would come across rather than try and make it look good, but it was bad anyway. Like the start of the film, when you see the rubbish puppets, come in, and then you zoom out, and it's much better. It's much more technically finesse, and that I love the kind of perfectionism behind it. I think those two probably do have a sense of perfectionism that they were trying to strive towards, and I think they nailed it. My other
Absolutely.
question for you is, what biscuit goes with Team America?
Oh, Team America's a party ring for sure.
It's a pie ring. I predicted it. I really wanted to write that down and just hold it up and just go, I predicted a party ring. I actually was going to write Bourbon on the back, and then, like, if you said Bourbon, I'd just quickly flipped it.
No, it's a party ring, man. Like
Pie ring.
it's fun on the surface, and there's a good stuff at the bottom. Like,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
multi-layered. It's
I,
multi-layered.
absolutely it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you now because it's my job to. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
it is your job. Sorry, I've taken it over. Sorry.
Do you
Sorry.
think Team America World Police is better than Space Jam?
Undoubtedly so, unfortunately. I wish I could hesitate just a little bit more, but yes, I'd have to agree with you there, James. There's just so many great things about it that we've already touched upon. We've already named, well, at least my favourite scenes in it. It's just a comedy great.
I'll just throw it out there. My favorite scene is also the puking scene.
This is great, isn't it? Yeah, which literally
This,
happens just after cock, pussies, and assholes. Sorry for the swearing again, but that speech is just great. It's just an absolute great speech.
but no, the puking scene where the music swells and you think he's okay, but he goes down again and the music keeps swelling.
And his eyes open as well. It's just that moment of realization again. Oh, it hasn't stopped.
but then the
Yeah.
bit where obviously there's a problem with the vomit splatter coming out
Yeah,
of his mouth. It's,
it's just going everywhere.
it's too funny, man. It's a good scene.
It just pans out, and it's just like he's lying there in a pool of puke.
If you haven't seen Team America World Police, please do so because it is, well, officially better than Space Jam.
I hope we've done enough to convince you that Team America is a must-watch film, even in the genres. If you do films by genres, if you like that argument for film, then Team America has to go. Well, at least in my top 10
Mhm.
comedies. I don't know where it goes in my top 10. I haven't really formulated that yet, but it will definitely go somewhere, probably quite high up as well, because it's just my sense of humour.
And with that, sir, we'll leave it. We'll wrap it up.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming onto this podcast, mate.
it's been an honour.
It's been a while since, like, I think I recorded with you maybe like 2 years ago.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then things just got in the way, and I haven't done much more on my podcast. But I am starting it up again once I've got married and got that all out the way. Uh, I'm sure love hearing a phrase like that. I'm going to focus more back onto my podcast because I absolutely love doing it and talking with and meeting people like you, James.
Mhm.
It's just a fantastic experience, and hopefully, please, I get to come on your show again, and we'll talk about yet another film.
It'll be similar to this, won't it? Although I'm absolutely baffled because when you were talking about your top four, I was looking for them and I was like, okay, but and then I thought there are great films in there. Why are we talking about this? Like
I want to see being able to talk about like a lot of film. A lot of people do pigeonhole me. You know, as soon as they hear James Bond, they hear action, and they think I'm a one sort of track sort of thing. And Team America isn't like a really far stepping stone. It's not like, oh, let's talk about Schindler's List or something quite deep and heavy. It's like that. I just wanted to see another perspective and to show off a bit more of my prowess on film and my love for it, and that's what we're here for, really, isn't it? Biscuits and Blu-rays is about showing your love for film, and so is my podcast, and it's just great hearing lots of different perspectives on it. And I will always say this: in film, you're never wrong. You're just a different type of right.
that's a good sign off there, mate. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me there, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.